Hello everybody, I'm back. This brass came out of the tumbler. I took it in the house, I washed it off because I wanted to get all that media dust off of it. I dried it and now I laid them out, and I just got finished spraying them with Dillon Case Lube DCL. This is really good stuff because it has two components. It has lanolin and it has isopropyl alcohol. The alcohol is used as a propellant, and it sends the lanolin through the air and it coats the cases. And what happens is the alcohol dries, and then what's left behind is just the lanolin. It's a very good case lube. I highly recommend it. Now, a lot of people say that these dyes, these pistol dyes, that it's not necessary to lube your brass. That's totally correct. 100% accurate. You don't have to. But from my experience, it doesn't hurt to do it. This stuff's a dime a dozen. It's really inexpensive, and it makes the process smoother to me. That's just my opinion. So I go ahead and lube them. I have 5 pieces of brass here that I've separated from the rest of them. That's because these 5, if you compare them to one of the normal ones, hopefully I can get a good view on them. These ones are the ones I separated, and I separated them because they have the small pistol primer, and the standard 45 ACP has the large pistol primer. One of the reasons why I think that they've changed from the large primers to the small primers was because if you look at the diameter of the large primer and compare it to the small primer, the large diameter primer takes more case head real estate than the small primer does. So one of the reasons why the switch was made was these new ones have a higher case head strength than the old style. There's a lot more material, I guess you could say, so it's a stronger case. Another reason why I believe that they've switched, and this is due to some of my research that I've done, is the priming compound mixture that it takes to fill a large primer is more than it takes to fill a small primer. So they're saying that these new small primer 45 ACPs actually have a cleaner burning load, and they're less toxic because some of these old large pistol primers had lead in them in the priming compound. So they're saying that the small ones puts less lead out into the environment, so they're cleaner. I've read some forums, and there's been a lot of people talking about the difference between these two. And a lot of people have been saying that they've been working up some loads with the small pistol primer 45 ACP, and they're saying that they've found some loads that are very accurate with this new primer, the smaller one. I did some other research. I found a website where the guy, he did some chronograph between the two. They were both reloads. They both had the same exact amount of powder, same bullet, same everything. The large pistol primer, I think the chronograph averaged out, I think he shot like 10 rounds, and it averaged the velocity out to about 784 feet per second. The small pistol primer, the average was 793, so you're looking at, what is that, 8 or 9 feet per second faster with the new small primer design. So those are some of the things that I thought I'd share with you. Definitely, if you're going to be reloading 45 ACP, make sure that you go through your brass, and because you might have some of these in there. They're made by Federal, the ones that I found. They're Federal, but I don't know if there's other manufacturers out there doing this yet or not. I'm guessing that there are, but so out of this many, I don't even know how many this is, but I had 5 that I separated. So now that I've got these lubed, the next step, I'm going to be talking about decapping and resizing. Hello, welcome back. Now it's time to start the decapping step. I have my safety glasses already on, and I've taken all the lubed brass and I put it in this cup. I'm going to take this cup and I'm going to set it over here by my bench, by my press. I have a bucket here, and that's where the brass is going to go after I decap it and resize it. The dies that I'm going to be using today are made by Lee. They're the full length 45 ACP die set. Very good dies. There's 4 dies in there. The one thing I like about this set is that unlike many other sets, this one comes with the shell holder with the set. It's kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and take that shell holder, raise the ram a little bit, and insert the shell holder just by pushing it with my thumb. Sounds like my press is a little bit dry, so I'm going to take a little oil, put a little drop or two on my press just to give it a little bit of oil, just to kind of make it a little smooth. Doesn't take a lot of oil, just a little. There we go. That's starting to sound much better. This is a step that I noticed a lot of people forgetting. You'll see their press running and it's really tight. So from this point, I'm going to take the first die of the set, which is the decapping die, and that's noted by the decapping pin. I'm going to insert this into the press. Start threading it down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the ram, and I'm going to thread the die down until the die body touches the shell holder. Once it touches the shell holder, then I'm going to tighten the die lock ring. When you tighten the die lock ring, you don't have to make it gorilla tight. Just snug it up. Doesn't have to be crazy. From here, we're ready to begin our decapping step. So we're doing 2 things. We're knocking the old primer out, and we're also resizing the full length of the brass. Let me zoom in a little bit and get you a better view. So I basically go through this whole bucket until I'm done decapping all of them. Sometimes you'll have a piece that the mouth might be crooked on. That's okay, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. Here in a second I'll switch the camera for another view. This is another way I like to do it. I'll take my body and I'll kind of lean my body against the handle here. This will give me a short stroke so I don't have to raise the ram all the way up and down. This helps a little bit. And get a lot done. I have my hand over here. My left hand's full of brass. My right hand's the one doing all the work. So this method works pretty good if you're not wanting the ram to go all the way up and down. Another thing you can do is you can get a shell holder extension. Basically it's kind of like a shell holder. It goes in and then you put your shell holder in it and it extends your range, or should I say it lengthens your ram higher. So if you have one of those big presses, you can do shell holder extension like that, and it helps a lot to keep the stroke smaller, so you don't have to, if you had a big old press and you didn't want to move all that much, you could definitely do something like that. I'll zoom in a little bit and give you a little closer view. So a lot of people wonder why we reload. It's very simple. We reload to save money and to increase our performance on our ammunition. Some of those factory bullets that you find, you know, they fluctuate a lot with how much variance there is in the powder charges that are thrown at the factory. Those bullets, when they make them at the factory, a lot of times the powder charges are thrown by volume instead of by weight. And when you reload, you can throw by volume as well, or you can weigh every charge. When I'm doing something like this many, I doubt that I'll weigh every charge. I'll probably weigh like every 10th one or something. So for the most part, they'll be thrown by volume too. These are just plinking loads that I'm making today. These are just loads to take out, you know, and have fun with. That's the cool thing about reloading though, is if you wanted to have some really high-end accurate, you know, you can do a lot of things to your bullet to really increase that accuracy and that ability to be hitting a good target. Another thing that's neat about the reloading process is the amount of choice that you have on the types of bullets that you're going to use. You know, factory ammunition, you don't have that big of a choice. You know, you basically buy what they got there, and a lot of it's full metal jacket ball ammo, you know, which is fine, but I like reloading because you can cast your own bullets, you can make all your own, you know, it really is a fun hobby. I like this little press. It's one of the cheapest presses you can buy. I think Midway actually sells this press for like 27 bucks, and it's a really good press for pistol cartridges. In fact, I load 223 with it also, and it does a very good job with that as well. Got a little overzealous there. So again, all we're doing is we're resizing all this brass. This, when it comes to reloading, if you notice something bind up, stop and take a look and figure out what's going on. I've seen so many people, you know, their press will bind up or something, and they'll just go crazy and they'll crank on the handle harder. You know, you can't do that with reloading. You have to have some finesse. You have to have the ability to be patient, the ability to look at what you're doing. If you feel something bind, the ability to stop, take a look, and see what the problem is. That's what's nice about, you know, a person that has that ability to do that. If you're not a patient person, reloading might not be the best thing for you. And some people say, oh, you need a press that has a lot of torque. I slightly disagree with that statement, just a little bit. And that's because, I mean, yes, if you're going to be using a large 7 mag, 300 Win mag or something, yeah, this press ain't going to be able to handle it. You do need more torque for resizing, especially if you're full length resizing a big cartridge like that. But what I mean is, if you're going to be doing 38 special or 44 mag or 223 or 357, like in our case today, 45 ACP, you don't need a big old rock chucker press. And I have nothing against the rock chucker, it's a great press. But you don't really need anything that significant to do something small like this. Another reason why I like this small press is because it's a C style body. It's not an O style body like a lot of those. So I can get into this area all day long with no problem. Plus, the stroke, which is the length of the ram movement, is shorter. So I don't have to sit there and take so much time like I would on one of those other presses to get the job done, because the stroke is shorter. I really like this press for pistol cartridges. So if you're somebody out there who's just starting to think about, wow, I might get into reloading, but I'm not sure what to buy. I want to load some 44 mag or 357, whatever, some pistol cartridge. I'd highly recommend this press. Even if you just start with this press and you do it for a while, and then you decide, well, I think I'm going to get a Redding Big Boss or something. You know, you're going to upgrade your press. That's fine. But use something small like this through the learning curve. Like I said earlier, if you're a patient person, you can do a lot with a small press like this. I load full length resize 30-06 on this press. No problem at all. That's because I have a patient personality. I'm not the kind of person to get in a rush. When I feel something bind up, I stop, I look at it, this is what's bound up, and I fix the problem. I've seen a buddy of mine brought his dies over one day for 7 mag, and I loaded some 7 mag for him on this little press. So, works great. It had a little bit of difficulty, you know, resizing that 7 mag, but it did do it. And, you know, it took a lot of finesse, but that's about it for the decapping and resizing. I'm just basically going to complete all of this until I'm done with this bucket, and then I'll talk to you on the next step. Okay, so we're done decapping, we're done resizing. The next step that we want to do is we want to put the bullet into the brass, but you notice the bullet won't fit. That's because the case mouth is tighter in diameter than the bullet is. So what we need is we need to take the top of the case and expand it open a little bit. To do that, we use the case mouth expansion die. Now Lee does something very unique. Notice you can see all the way through this die. What they do is they take this die and they make it so that you can pour powder when you expand the case mouth. We're not going to pour powder yet, but the reason that I'm explaining that this die you can see through it is because some people like to prime their cases after they decap them and resize them. They would go right into priming, and then they would bell the case mouths, which is fine if you're using a Lee die, because if you were not using a Lee die and you raise this piece of brass up to bell the case mouth, if you were using like an Rcbs die or any die that does not have that where you can see through it, basically that air escape, I guess you could say, if that die doesn't have that air escape, it could create pressure in your brass as you're belling the case mouths, and the result of that pressure could be unseating a primer a little bit or knocking a primer all the way out. So if you're running the Lee dies, you can definitely prime before you bell the case mouths. So what I want to do is I want to raise the ram and I want to thread the die down until the die body again touches the shell holder. Once it touches the shell holder, I'm going to back the die out about 1 turn. So I just did a half. Let me do another half. That's about 1 turn. Then I'm going to take the brass that I want to bell the case mouth on, and I'm going to insert it up into the die. Bring it down, And what I want to do is I want to try to see if the bullet will fit. Not yet. So we need to turn this die down about 1/4 of a turn. Raise the ram. It'll give it a little bit more of a bell. And we'll inspect the cartridge and see. Still too tight. Let's go another 1/4 of a turn. Raise the case up again. Take it out and inspect it and see if it'll fit. And so far we don't have enough bell. So let's go another 1/4 of a turn. Raise it up. Come down. Inspect. We're getting close. One thing that I want to recommend is that you don't get in the habit of belling your case mouths a large amount. That looks perfect right there. Let me come in closer and show you what I'm looking at. See how that cast bullet just fits right in there? Nice and easy. It's not too loose and it's not too tight. It's just perfect. So that's the setting that I want to leave on this die. So I'm going to insert the case and I'm going to raise it up. The reason I'm going to raise it up is because that'll lock the die in place so that I could lock the die lock ring. And it'll save that belling adjustment that we've made, so that's what it'll do to every case. So let's try a new one. That adjustment should be perfect. Yep, looks good. And what I was saying a second ago is you don't want to put too much of a bell on your case mouths, because that could be a problem for the life of your brass, because you'll be stretching it out, putting it back, stretching it out, putting it back, and it'll wear your brass out. So basically from here I just bell the case mouths on all of this brass. So I'll see you in a few. Okay, I'm back and I'm still belling the case mouths. I'm just showing you a closer view of this step. So it's very similar to what we did in decapping, except we're doing a different purpose. I can't stress it enough that you don't want to bell the case mouths too much. Just a little bit. And that's really all it takes. Okay, I'm back. Now we've had these cases, they've already been resized, deprimed, we've already belled the case mouth, and now it's time to put new primers in them, into this primer pocket. The primers that we're going to be using today are Winchester large pistol primers. The tool that we're going to use to prime these cases is the Lee Auto Prime tool. It's a hand primer, it does a great job. Right now I have it loaded with a few primers, and it has the appropriate shell holder in the tool already. So basically what I want to do is I want to insert the case into the shell holder, and I'll push this plunger. And as I push, I want to feel the sensitivity of how hard it was to prime that case. I'm touching the case with my finger because I want the primer to be flush with the top of the case, flush with this area, or just a little bit recessed, just a little bit under. So when you prime these, what I like to do is, as I pull them out, I like to look at the head of the case and see who it's made by. If it's Federal, if it's Winchester, PMC, anything like that. And if you come across one that looks something like this, that shows like military markings, that's what I use this tool for. This is the L.E. Wilson large primer tool, and it basically gets rid of any military crimp that may have been on there. Just kind of cleans up that primer pocket, and it makes it where you can seat a primer a lot easier than it may have been had you not used the tool. See, that was still tight. If I hadn't have done that with that reamer, that might have been a lot harder. Another thing that I like to do with this Lee Wilson tool is I like to take it off of the handle and I like to put it in my drill. Because once it's in my drill, I can make it, you know, powered. So I'll basically take a case and I'll just gently ream it. Now you don't want to take out too much material out of the brass, otherwise you might make that primer pocket a little bit loose and you may have to discard that case. But that's why you have the sensitivity when you feel this handle, how hard it is to go in or not. Another thing that I want to mention is when you're priming cases, the case mouth here, you don't want to point it at your friends, you don't want to have it pointed up at your face, and you definitely want to wear safety glasses when you do this. But this is basically the priming step, and so I'm going to go from one bucket, and then I'll prime them, and then I'll throw them in the other bucket. So I'm just going to sit here and do this, and when I'm done, we'll move to the next step. So happy priming, everyone. One thing that I forgot to mention is when you put new primers into this priming tool, you'll notice these little grooves right here. And you see how most of them are oriented correctly and some of them are not? That's what those little grooves are for. They're so you could shake the tool and it'll help orient the primers to the proper the way they're supposed to be sitting in there. That's what those little grooves are for. It's like I have one of them that's being stubborn, but for the most part it does a good job helping to orient the primers so that they're face up for you. So I thought I would throw that in there. So this goes along pretty quickly, you know, once you get the feel of this tool, and you kind of, if this would be a good thing to do, I guess if you wanted to watch a movie, you could sit there in your chair, prime some cases, because you know, if you're doing a large amount of brass like I am today, you know, it takes a lot of work to operate this little tool, a lot of hand strength. I understand that a lot of people, you know, they like to prime on their press. I see nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually good. If I was a little bit older in my life, I'd probably consider something like that, because I don't know if I'd have the dexterity in my hands to do all this stuff. So, but while I'm young, I'm gonna go ahead and use this priming tool. So I'm getting closer to being done. Kind of a cumbersome task, but the results are going to be good. I'm going to have some good 45 ACP bullets to take out to the range. And you notice before I throw them in this bucket, I'm just kind of looking at them real quick, like a very quick visual inspection. You know, I'm looking at the primers to see how well seated they are and things like that. And looks like I need to reload. Okay, so now what I'd like to talk about is verifying the powder charge. I have some of them that I've already done, I have a little loading block that I'm putting them in. So basically I'm going to turn my scale on and it's going to zero to that bowl. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to get my powder charge and I'm going to weigh the powder charge. It says 5.4 grains. This is the back of the primer box of one of the little piece of cardboard. So basically I've written down all the information that I need for this round. It's a 45 ACP, today's date, 1.275 overall length. I hope you can see all this. Unique powder, and my source says I can go from 5 to 5.9 grains, but I'm going to be loading these at 5.5. 240 grain cast Lee bullet, and at the bottom I wrote Winchester large pistol primers. So this data is going to be sitting right next to my powder measure, right next to the powder that I'm using, because we're using Alliant Unique. So 5.4 grains, that's a good charge. I'm basically going to put the charge into the case and make sure the bowl zeros again, and I'll throw another charge, weigh it again, 5.6, so we're fine because we can go up to 5.9. And I'm just basically going to load all these cases. Another technique that you can use is you can take a piece of brass, you can put it on your scale, turn the scale on. The scale will zero to that brass, then you can charge the brass and weigh it, 5.4. So it looks good. But the problem with doing that is if you pick up another piece of brass, like right now it says 0.6 grains, that's because this piece of brass is heavier than the last piece of brass. So I would have to turn off the scale, turn it back on, get it to zero, and that could be a very cumbersome process. In fact, it could wear out the button on my scale, or excuse me, on my scale. So I don't want to do that. That's why I had to zero it for it, 5.2. So we're doing fine. So basically I'm going to go through and I'm just going to charge these. I'm not going to weigh every single one. I'm just going to weigh like every 10th round and see what kind of powder charge I'm still throwing. This happens to be the Hornady lock and load powder measure. It's a great powder measure. I was really excited when I bought it because it's part of their Get Loaded program, and that is where if you buy like a set of dies that are Hornady or some of the certain items, you qualify for a coupon. It's a mail-in rebate for 100 free bullets. If you buy one of their presses, like the Hornady Lock and Load Classic press, or if you were to get like their Lock and Load AP press, I think they gave you 500 bullets. Years ago they used to offer 1,000 bullets. What's up with that, Hornady? Come on, let's go back to 1,000 bullets. So we're still throwing a good charge. Scale turns off and I'm just going to keep charging. I'm going to do 50 shells at a time, and then what I'm going to do is I'll seat 50 bullets, then I'll charge again, and then I'll seat again. So I'm doing these bullets basically in batches of 50. So I'll talk to you soon when I'm done charging. Okay, right now I'm done charging and I'm zooming down looking at this these cases, and I'm verifying that the powder charge levels are the same on all of the cases. I just want to make sure that there's not a high load, not a low load, nothing like that. So I take a brief moment, and that's basically what I look for. I just look to see how everything looks, and everything looks fine. Hello, I have 50 loaded charged cases in front of me. I have some cast 240 grain Lee bullets that I've made. I've taken out my case mouth expansion die, and in my hand I have my bullet seating die. I've backed out the bullet seating stem all the way out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the bullet seating die into the press, and I'm going to start seating bullets. I'm going to take a loaded case and I'm going to raise the ram all the way up, and I'm going to thread the bullet seating die down until I feel it touch the case. Once I feel it touch the case, I'm going to back the die out about a half of a turn and lock the die lock ring. From here, I'm going to lower the ram, take a bullet, and raise the ram. Thread down the bullet seating stem until I feel it touch the bullet. From here, lower the ram a little, give it a couple turns, and this will seat the bullet a little bit. Obviously, we're way too long, but what we're looking for is what we wrote down earlier, and that's 1.275 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up my calipers here, and we're going to take some measurements. 1.35, so we're quite a bit long. The further you are away from the desired length, the bigger increments you can adjust the bullet seating stem. But once you start getting close, you got to make smaller adjustments because you don't want to go too far. Like I just measured, and we're 1.272, so it looks good. Let me check that measurement one more time. 1.2725. That's right on the money. So this die is now set to seat all of these bullets. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these one at a time, and I'm going to seat these bullets. Since we have a 4 die set, we're going to be using the next die to do the crimping, not this die. So this is the step of seating the bullets. So I'll see you in a few. Okay, so we have 50 rounds that we just seated the bullets on, and now what we need to do is we need to take that bullet and put a crimp on it. In other words, when we belled the case mouths open, we need to take that bell and put it back into a crimp. So to do that, I'm going to take out the bullet seating die, and I'm going to insert the Lee factory crimp die. Raise the ram all the way up. I'm going to lower the die down until it touches the shell holder. From here, I'm going to back the die back about 1/8 of a turn, between 1/8 and 1/4 of a turn, and I'm going to lock the die lock ring. From here, I want to make sure that the crimp adjustment screw is backed all the way out, which it is. So now I'm going to take the rounds that have no crimp, I'm going to insert them into the press, and raise them up. From here, I'm going to lower the crimp adjustment screw down until I feel it touch the bullet. Once I feel it touch, I'll lower the ram slightly, and I'll give the crimp about 1/8 of a turn, this crimp adjustment screw. And I'll raise the ram and take a look at the cartridge. And I'm looking for the crimp. I'm going to go another 1/8 of a turn. And I'm starting to see a shiny little ring barely around the case mouth. I don't know if you can see that, but that's from where the die is putting a crimp on it. I'm going to go one more 1/8 of a turn. Now they normally say that you could go in 1/4 turn increments, but I don't like going that much. I like doing 1/8 turn increments. So that looks pretty good. That looks like a decent crimp. Now what I need to do is check these bullets and see how they're going to chamber. And I don't have a case length gauge for 45 ACP yet, but I do have the barrel out of a 1911. You just want to make sure that they drop right in there. And they are. So it looks like they'll chamber pretty well. And I'm going to go one more 1/8 of a turn, just for good measure. Just to give it a good crimp. From there, wipe off any excess and check it one more time just to make sure. Yep, goes in there, no problem. So from here, I'm going to take all 50 of these now that the die is adjusted, and I'm just going to crimp away. So this die does a really good job putting a crimp on the bullet. And so there you have it. There's the finished product. 240 grain cast bullet, 45 ACP. It's a very good bullet. And anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some useful information here. Feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to subscribe. And again, I appreciate you watching. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.